What's up, everybody? I may be no expert in having an imported car just because I own, in my opinion, one of the coolest, but I certainly know that I did not make my life easy. And if you're somebody that just wants to own an imported cool car, because honestly, right-hand drive imported cars get a little bit of extra cool factor for a lot of people. Not everybody, but for a lot of people. But you don't want a headache, which I would not call this car a headache, but owning it is certainly more of a headache than others. There's a few easy ways to do this. I don't have specific cars, like it's not a ranking list like I do often, but just ways to be able to own an imported car, which is already cool, but without it being such a headache. Like I said, this car is not necessarily a headache. It's a very reliable car. I mean, the window is still stuck down. I just got the motor in today. I need to do that. But other than that, it's a very reliable car, so that's not what makes it hard ownership or a headache. What can make it a headache or hard ownership for this car in particular is that parts availability is not really there. There was only about 2,500 road-going examples of the Pajero Evolution, and because there wasn't a lot, there's not a lot of parts sitting in junkyards around the world, and there's not a lot of aftermarket support, and there's still not a lot, or there's not still a lot of factory support because there's not a lot of these cars out there, so it's not worth the money for Mitsubishi to keep up with factory parts. There's still some parts out there, but like I ordered a oil filter from Japan. You can probably go get one for a 3.5 liter Mitsubishi Montero, and it's probably the same one, but ordered that from Japan. I had to order the window motor from Japan. I can't just order that from a parts supplier website like you can with like a US spec Montero. And then there's a lot of parts that are NLA, no longer available, that are discontinued, that you have to be lucky enough to maybe find in like the Facebook group for Pajero Evolution owners. And that's not the only case. This car is not the only case of that. There's a lot of cars that we didn't get in the US that were limited production runs or not super popular or whatever, that it's hard to get parts for. And like if God forbid this ever gets in an accident, the body panels for the most part are impossible, especially the fender flares, to get from factory. So you have to hope you can find them secondhand, and that is a big hope. So that's one of the things that can make car ownership really hard, is just a limited production car that they don't have part support for. The other thing that can make it hard is an unreliable car that you have to have a lot of support for, or be able to order parts all the time. And then that becomes the mixed bag of limited run cars versus regular production run cars that there's easier to find parts from. So those are two things that really make it hard for you to own an imported car. And there's 4 ways to really own an imported car that makes it easier. Of course, owning a brand new, modern, or recently produced car is the easiest way to own a car. But if you want to own a cool imported car, like I said, there's 4 easy ways to do it. So the first and most obvious way to make your life easier owning a car is buying a reliable imported car. So most things Toyota, that's the easiest example to go with. Most things Toyota, you got to do your own research, but like Mitsubishi Delicas are popular in the off-road and van life community, although they can be a little small for van life. But they're fairly reliable if you get the right engine. Toyotas, you can get almost any Toyota, and it's reliable. Non-performance trims of some of the 2J and RB motored cars can be reliable. So if you find something reliable, parts aren't as big of a deal. Now, like I said, the Pajero Evolution is considered fairly reliable, but there's not a lot of parts out there because it was so limited, so that's where it gets a little bit harder. But reliability is the easiest way to make owning an imported car headache-free. The second way is lots of aftermarket support. So even if it might be a more limited car, if it's something like any of the R32, 33, or 34 RB cars, S chassis, Supras, I mean, I'm using a lot of JDM examples here. If there's very popular cars, especially in the modding community, and there's a lot of aftermarket support, that's another way, because while there might not be factory support, there's going to be aftermarket companies that will make engine internals. It might be hard to find like window switches, but when there's a lot of aftermarket support, even if you end up essentially building your motor or your transmission or your diffs or whatever, there is aftermarket support. So even if there's not factory support, if you need parts on popular modded cars that have a lot of aftermarket support, that can make your ownership a lot easier as well. So the third easiest way are cars that we got, but maybe for whatever reason, whether that's availability, expense, or whatever, it's cars that we got, but just from other markets, but are essentially the exact same. A great example of this one is the Toyota Supras. Manual turbo Supras go for crazy money. Even if they're high mileage, they still go for way more than they're worth when they're US spec. But if you just want a manual turbo Supra and you don't care if it's right-hand drive, you can save a lot of money by importing a right-hand drive Supra. That's a great example. Another one is the 300ZX. I love the Z32s. The Z31s are fine, but I love the Z32s. But we did not get a lot of turbos in the US. There's very few, especially if you want to go turbo, manual, Targa, in my opinion, the best spec for 300ZXs. There was a lot more in Japan, and they're a lot cheaper from Japan because a lot of people don't want to deal with right-hand drive. If you get a right-hand drive example from Japan, they're less desirable in the US. They're cheaper to own. They're cheaper to purchase in the US. Now, this kind of can fly in the face of the reliability parts, and they certainly are not easy to work on with that engine bay. But it's one way to make it less of a headache. Plus, there's good aftermarket support. Those cars are popular, and it's a car that we got. Another one of those are like MX-5s or Unos Roadsters, right? We got the Miata. We got the NA Miata. NB Miatas, I think, are starting to become importable. Those are they're the same cars. If you don't mind right-hand drive, you're not necessarily going to save money like the Supras or the 300ZX is, but you'll be able to get parts, and then you have a right-hand drive, cool imported car. You know, this list wasn't necessarily about saving money. It was just, hey, I want to own an imported car to say I own an imported car. Another one is the Toyota Altezza and the Toyota Aristos. The Altezas are the Lexus ISs. You can get it with an NA1J, but we got those. The mechanical parts are available. The body panels, for the most part, are the same, so those are available. So that has regular parts availability because they're a car we got. And the Aristo is the GS line, and you can actually go those with a turbo 2J, and a lot of the 2J motors that are sent over to America are from cars like the Aristo. But you can get the mechanical parts because we got turbo 2Js. We got NA 2Js. It uses the same transmission. Like, you can get a lot of the mechanical parts, and of course it shares a lot of the body panels, headlights, taillights, etc. So they're easy to get because they're the same as the US. And same thing goes with like BMW E28 5 Series and E33 Series. We got them. They're the same cars, so it's easy to get parts for them. And then the fourth and final way is cars that are similar to what we got. You know, I mentioned the Altezza and the Aristo are the same as cars, but now you can get a 2J turbo in the Aristo, so it's not quite the same as what we got because we didn't get the turbo. We only got the NA, unfortunately, and the V8s, which are very good as well. But like getting cars that are similar to what we got, so if you get a turbo 2J Aristo, Toyota Surf, which is a car we actually got, that's the RAV4, but we didn't get like the diesel. So if you get the diesel, you can't get like engine parts, but you can get other parts. But if you get cars similar to what we got, whether it's the Surf, the Aristo, Evo's pre-Evo 8, because we started getting the Evo 8 and on, but the 7s are becoming importable now, which I talked about the Evo 7s in my coolest cars to import starting this year. I'll link that video down below. But they used the 4G63 for a long time. I don't know if the Evo 1 had it, but I know the 4, 5, and 6 have the 4G63. I think the 1, 2, and 3 do. But you can get 4G63 parts in the US, one, because we got that motor, and two, it goes back to the aftermarket support. So like Evos prior, Mitsubishi Pajeros, not the Evolution, but just the other standard Pajeros, because we got the Mitsubishi Montero, which is the same car, got most of the same engine options and transmission options. So the Pajeros are a similar car to what we got. We got the Montero. Pajero is pretty much the same car, and you can find parts for that. So that's another easy way to own an imported car. So the easy ways are reliable cars, obviously, aftermarket, cars with a lot of aftermarket support, cars that are the same as what we got but now in right-hand drive, and then cars that are similar to what we got. Reliable, obviously, is the biggest no-brainer because you just don't need parts that often, but the headache can come in when you do need parts, like how I needed a window motor for the Pajero Evo, and if it turns out I actually need a window switch, those just aren't made anymore. If there's a lot of aftermarket support, you might not be able to get factory parts, but you can get aftermarket parts and fix what you need to fix. If it's the same car that we got here, just right-hand drive, you'll be able to get all the parts you need very easily. And depending on how old the car is, you can even get them from parts websites or potentially even junkyards. And then cars that are similar to what we got, where they're not quite the same, but you can get most of the parts, especially if you get a reliable car or a car that got the same engine and maybe has a slight different tweak to it. But that's the easiest way to own imported cars. I have no regrets owning the Pajero Evo. It's a dream car. I keep saying I'm going to get rid of this year. I go back and forth on that all the time. And it's just cool. You roll up in a right-hand drive car. If you like the attention of like Cars and Coffee or Car Meets, you immediately get it. And sometimes whether it's an affordability or a patience or a time thing, you just aren't in a place in your life where you can own a headache of an imported car, but you want to own an imported one. And this is the easiest way to do it with some examples. But thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like when I talk cars, or if you like cars and you're interested in my content, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. And please comment down below what you think. If I missed any tips, if you disagree with anything, you have any more examples, comment down below what you think. Thank you again so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Have a good day.